coming to the resolutions, and the mayor will give an update as well.
Mr. Enderdale, this is Graham
7
Sparks
o'clock, the meeting
speaking from the city clerk's office. If you would like to click on your browser somewhere, you can access the chat. There are going to be instructions both verbally given as well as written in the chat that outline the process to get on the speakers list for specific items of legislation. I direct your attention to the chat, sir.
Yes.
We need to go ahead and get, I hate to interrupt you, but it's now 7 p.m. and we have to officially start our meeting.
Okay.
And Karen, I can also read the instructions at the beginning.
Okay. I would like to call the Monday, July 13, 2020 meeting of the South Bend Common Council to order at this time. Clerk Dawn Jones, I believe that you would like to make some comments regarding the link for this meeting, but also in terms of other instructions.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vice President White. Good evening, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council and for yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a specific agenda item, please submit your request in the chat directions to do so, or in the chat. We ask that you provide your full name and address, as those are required for all speakers at an in-person council meeting. So also, if you would like to be called on during the meeting to provide public input, please insert the following into the chat and you will be called on during the relevant time for public input. You say your name, your address, and you want to speak for or against. You will then be given 3 minutes. So please be sure to unmute yourself prior to giving your remarks. For citizens that wish to speak during the privilege of the floor, please insert the following into the chat and the council president will call on you during the relevant time for public input. Again, you state your name and your address, and you will then be given 3 minutes to speak. So always be sure to unmute yourself before you speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Clerk Jones. Due to the executive order by Indiana Governor Holcomb, the South Bend Common Council meetings will be legally held by way of virtual meeting by using Microsoft Teams application. The clerk has given you that information, and so now we will go to our invocation. Our invocation will be given by 1st District Representative Pastor Kenneth Lee.
Thank you, Vice President White. Let's bow our heads. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we ask as we begin to talk about the issues of our community in this city council meeting, I ask God that you would allow our hearts and our minds to be yielded towards you. I ask that you would allow us to be able to hear the hearts of individuals and to be able to respond responsively. I ask God that you would even knit us together so that we can continually work together so that we can make South Bend a more successful and prosperous place. I ask God that you would bless everyone who's on this call, all the council members. We pray, God, even for all of the agenda items, that you will allow us to not just make our own decisions, but decisions that reflect the best interest for our community. And we ask that you would bring South Bend together, that you would bind us together with cords that cannot be broken, and that we would be one unit moving forward to make South Bend a better place for all people. Amen.
Amen. We'd like to thank you for that invocation, and we would like to officially welcome you, Pastor Kenneth Lee, as the 1st District Representative to the South Bend Common Council. At this time, Mrs. Jones, would you please call the roll? Will you please?
Yeah, I needed to unmute myself. Okay. Councilmember Lee?
Present.
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Davis? Okay. Councilmember McBride,
Present.
Councilmember Warner,
Here.
Councilmember Teschka,
Here.
Councilmember Nizgowski,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Councilmember Hammond,
Present.
Councilmember Davis, Vice President White.
Present.
Okay, 8 present.
Clerk Jones, this is your deputy Graham. I don't see him in the lobby at this point in time. Councilmember Davis. I will keep an eye on it though, and try to make sure
Thank you.
the chair knows.
Okay, thank you.
We
Graham.
appreciate that so much. We'll now have the report from the subcommittee on minutes. Mrs. Jones, would you please read the report from the subcommittee on minutes?
Okay, we don't have any minutes at this time.
Mhm.
So there's no report on subcommittee of minutes.
Do you have a sense when we may have those minutes?
Yes, we should have them this week.
Mhm.
My executive assistant had an accident, so she dislocated her collarbone. So,
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay.
yeah. So
Well, we
otherwise,
thank
we
you.
would have had them.
Okay. Well, we thank you so much. We'll now move on to special business. We have our Mayor James Mueller, who would give us city-related updates. Each council member will have opportunity to ask 2 questions, and then we will go directly into our meeting for this afternoon. And so that I would ask Clerk Jones, after the mayor has given his presentation, we'll begin, if you would call the council members and to see which ones would like to ask questions.
Okay.
And I just got a note that Councilmember Davis can't connect.
Okay. I wonder if he's in the right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we now have Mayor James Mueller. Thank you for joining the council meeting. And this time we will receive updates from you in regards to city-related matters. After your presentation, each council member will have the opportunity to ask 2 questions if they have questions, and then we'll move forward. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for the invitation to present some updates from the city, and look forward to your questions. And just for a matter of record, James Mueller with Mayor with offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. First, I'll be brief in this update so we can get the questions and move on with the agenda. But first, wanted to give a quick update on where we are in the fight against COVID-19. And I'm sure you guys are looking at the same data that's troubling that we are. And there's not just an uptick across a lot of the southern states, but there is an uptick here in the Midwest and in our state and our county as well. Right now, we haven't gotten to the place where we worry about overwhelming our healthcare systems. That was a concern when we began these conversations in February and March. But nevertheless, cases are on the rise, and we need to remain vigilant to keep that in check. The county health department, as you know, the health officials extended the mask order in the county from July 4th until Labor Day, and they are working on measures to increase the enforcement levels so that there's a better compliance rate and a better containment of the virus here in St. Joseph County. One area of concern that a lot of that we all share is that schools reopening and also our universities bringing back students for the fall semester. And our local universities are working on everything they can do to contain or at least identify with testing, contact tracing, and isolation when students are on their campus. And there are discussions at the state level too with our university city peers of Bloomington and West Lafayette of what can we do to limit the spread from campuses to the broader community. So those are nothing, full to announce on that, other than this is, known to be an issue that our health officials are at the state and local levels are hoping to get ahead of and limit that spread. In wake of the increase over the past few weeks, we are reevaluating the best week ever, which was rescheduled for the first week of August. And so we'll have something to announce very soon on that. But, obviously we had hoped that by this point in July, the cases would have continued to go down to a place where we would feel more comfortable doing all sorts of things. But unfortunately, it's a stubborn disease, and we've got to double our efforts here to get it back under control. The public safety reform front, I think we had a great committee meeting last week with the 21 CP recommendations and implementation guide, and part of that was the next steps were coming up with a proposed action plan, and that's something that we'll want to be talking and running by council members very soon. But that's something that we're looking to move on as quickly as possible. The discipline matrix that we've discussed for some time, the Board of Public Safety received the latest version last week, and hopefully is on track to adopt it at this week's Board of Public Safety meeting. The use of force policy update that we announced a few weeks ago that we're working on and trying to get out as quickly as possible. We have it, we feel pretty good from the policy level that we're ready to share a draft, but we're still making sure what we're able to do here in the state of Indiana relative to other places. So it's still undergoing some legal review, but our aim is to be have a very forward-looking best practices in 21st century policing that our state law allows. And then I know council members, there's another draft of the Civilian Review Board ordinance, and we're still haven't had a chance to dig into the latest draft, but look forward to doing so and sharing any thoughts that we have for how we might be able to improve that policy, and look forward to get going on those discussions. And so while we're talking about all of the reform pieces, which is critical for our community and how we move forward, and I believe now supported by even more of our community than even just a couple months ago, there's support for our officers and other essential workers, and want to raise I know we're having a committee meeting on Wednesday with regard to Bill 2120, but this was a measure, and we'll defer a long conversation on this now for how do we move forward then. But I will just say that this was meant to be a quick measure early in the year, and various circumstances had delayed it. Obviously the COVID-19 emergency prevented a lot of action on things for several weeks, and then there were a number of questions that arose, and to the point where this extraordinary measure of trying to do something outside of the normal negotiation schedule, while it is meant to address an urgent need, we've got to do things now to get ahead and turn the ship around in terms of our officer retention, recruitment, and general morale. This measure is no longer something that can be done in the early part of the year, and negotiations are upon us. The Board of Public Safety appointed its agent for the negotiations, as well as I know the council is looking to do so soon as well. And so with that, the administration will be submitting a letter to withdraw Bill 2120, because, as I mentioned, that was just a quick step. And while I'm disappointed circumstances didn't allow us to take that quick step this year, we've got a lot of work to do in negotiations, And that step, we don't want that step to distract from what we need to get done during these negotiation process over the next couple of months. And so hopefully, as part of the conversation on Wednesday to the bill, we can talk more broadly about what we need to do to move our police department forward. And when we submitted the bill, there were some figures about where we are relative to regional peers, both in the state and within the broader region. And this is something that the administration will be looking to prioritize and push forward as part of the negotiation process. We need to make our compensation more competitive. And so that's something that, hopefully we can find a good agreement here in the next couple of months. But nevertheless, we'll be submitting a formal letter to withdraw that measure in the coming days. We've had a lot of discussions about our chronic homeless situation, and as we had a larger update about a month and a half ago with the full council, and so won't belabor those points, but we are looking to get the implementation group together with the council representatives to start moving things forward, both on the short-term and long-term basis. Permanent supportive housing, additional permanent supportive housing units, which do take time to come online, as well as what can be done in the more immediate term to address folks on the street. And so we are also working with all the service providers and trying to figure out how we might all be able to kind of take different pieces of this and help alleviate some of the concerns as quickly as possible. So that's underway. The isolation center up in Roseland is set to close in a couple days, and overall believe that even though the initial projections for need were much higher than what ended up being realized with the first wave anyway, the overall that was the only willing operator to host these folks, and overall think all things considered was a good service that we were able to provide for the community. And we're working with our health officials who are now taking the lead to figure out what we'll need for subsequent waves, knowing that the need is lower than initially projected at the beginning of the pandemic. And then finally, we're at the administration level, we're focused on the 2021 budget cycle, and know you have been hosting some committee meetings, getting a baseline of where we are and where we might be going. And we've received the council priorities and know that economic recovery will be at the center of the 2021 budget. That these may not have been priorities several months ago when the economy was roaring, but now are more urgent than ever, as our unemployment rate stays in double digits. And so with that, turn it over to any questions you may have.
Thank you. City Clerk Jones, will you acknowledge the council members? We'll go straight down the list, and council members who would like to ask questions of the mayor. This is the time to ask questions. It's not a time for necessary debate. It's just to ask questions, and it could also be on information that the mayor did not share. This was just an update for the council. And so each council member will have an opportunity to ask 2 questions.
Okay. The first on the list is Council Member Lee.
Thank you, Vice President White, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here. On July 31st, Diablo's Chapel will be closing down the tent city location. What is our immediate plan to help after July 31st?
Thank you for that question, and You weren't here during the update, so apologize. We didn't get we'll have to give you the full update separately on various things going on, both historically and currently. But so earlier in the year, I floated the idea of a city-run, potentially city-run shelter if our service providers weren't able to provide some sort of low-barrier emergency shelter in the community. That faced mixed reviews from different places, but that's something that we're still looking at least for this year, where we do have CARES Act funding that we could rearrange and allocate for this purpose. The challenge is they're finding a willing and able operator has been a challenge, and so that's something why we're continuing conversations with all the service providers. Is there a way that we can all come together and do smaller chunks of the heavy lift of doing such an operation, or if there's another solution for us. But we'll continue to look for that, as well as get that implementation group up and running quickly. So it's not this is the challenge. Our chronic homeless population has been relatively constant, or it depends around 100 plus or minus. There's different estimates for what there's the official count, and then there's anecdotally what people believe the actual need is. And we've constructed a number of and worked to establish with partners number of additional permanent supportive housing units, but the number seems to be relatively similar than it was even when Mayor Pete's working group on chronic homelessness was done in 2017. So and also just to put it in the context, and if you're concerned about what happens when the governor's stay on evictions ends, the chronic homeless individuals are generally a smaller fraction of the total homeless population in our community, but they are really seen as the face of this is what a lot of people think of when we do think of unsheltered individuals in our community. And so as long as our other service providers and other solutions for housing continue and are able to meet the demand of those facing evictions, we're really working as a community to figure out how do we address the chronic homeless. And so the issue is we've been working at it for a number of years. Like I said, we've been doing more than ever over the past few years as a city. We're working to get more units online, but obviously the need is still there, and there's an urgency to try to get unsheltered individuals sheltered.
Mm-hmm. And then what is the city's plan for dealing with the mental health and drug addiction of those people who are chronically homeless? Even in the first district over at the Martins Plaza, we're starting to see that people are putting up tents, and it's causing a lot of issues for those people. How do we address that, and what is the plan going to be?
So there's multiple aspects to that, and that's something we're going to have to get sort out with the implementation group and the service providers. But mental health, Oaklawn is a partner with the city. Life Treatment Center or other pieces are partners with the city, and they'll be at the table to figure out what we can do. And then there's the overall question of how does the outreach get coordinated and occur. For permanent supportive housing, there is a coordinated entry list that lists and ranks according to federal government guidelines, who where they are on that list and when they'd be eligible for permanent supportive housing. So that's one list, but there are other needs for coordination as well to make sure that we're connecting residents to services they need.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Next is Council Member Davis.
Yes, I just have one question. Mayor Mueller, From all of what has occurred, you talking about resolutions, discussions, online, offline, however you look at it. I just have one question. Why is this so hard? It just seems like it's just really difficult to come up with an idea or a vision to move forward on as it relates to this homeless situation. It just seems like it's like really hard. Why is it so hard?
That's a great question, and there are some cities do better than others, but in almost every major city in the country, there still remains unaddressed issues of homelessness in their community. I will say, by and large, South Bend and the city in particular, and the partners and the community are leaders in providing homeless services. There are some gaps, and so whenever you have a lot of different entities, there are gaps in coordination in areas. So that adds to some of the difficulties. The other difficulties are we're the South Bend, because it does act and has been a leader in many ways in the region. We don't have a lot of regional partners, but it's not to say that there aren't folks with needs coming from our regional neighboring jurisdictions. So it's a combination that a lot of it is thrown at the city and our service providers, a lot of them are located in a concentrated area, as well as just resources that it costs money to address these things. And there are certain things that we do have more money for than others, and constructing things is actually, there's more budget for building things, but operating services and other components is more challenging, because those funding streams are challenging across the board. So I guess that's any follow-up question on those pieces, or we can go into depth at a later date too.
Okay, next is Council Member McBride.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure, I know last year we talked about it, and we intentionally met with neighborhoods and had several meetings about investing in the neighborhoods. And I know that there are trying times right now, but I want to make sure that administration is still looking at making sure that each district has a win, if you will, something positive put in the neighborhood, so we can have our constituents knowing that we care about them and that we are providing a better quality of life and being intentional with doing so. So I just wanted to give that comment. I yield.
Okay, next we have Council Member Warner.
Thank you for coming, Mayor. I do not have any questions right now. I will yield my time to the rest. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Council Member Teshler.
Yeah, I echo Councilmember Warner's sentiments. I don't have any questions at this time, so I'll yield my time.
Council Member Niskoski.
The only question that I really have is, as far as the chronic homeless issue, has there been any collaboration with the city of Mishawaka, the county? Is there someone else that can help? And the only reason I say that is I get the feeling, and I shouldn't say the feeling, but it's my understanding that not all the people that are in this homeless group are even from South Bend. Not that that matters here nor there, but is there some sense of a collaboration from some of the other arms of government that would be able to help in this manner, so it's not all put on the city of South Bend?
Well, I mean, that's we would love to have more partnerships with the county, neighboring cities. We did ask for some reimbursement for the IQC, although since most of that cost was being reimbursed from emergency pandemic-related funding. That wasn't necessarily the most urgent thing. So we are in conversations with these jurisdictions, and hope to have more conversations, because the city's been doing more and more, and clearly it's hasn't been enough or been as effective as it needs to be, and coordinating at the higher level would be helpful, and that is something that we'll continue to pursue.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Next is Council Member Thomas Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here this evening and for those very helpful updates. Those three topics, COVID, public safety, and the homeless situation, are our community's top priorities, and so very helpful to get a pulse on where those stand. I especially appreciated what you were able to share about the developments and steps on the addressing the homelessness situation. I have no questions. I just thank you for those comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Council Member Hammond.
Hello, Mayor.
Hi.
In your address just a moment ago, you mentioned a city-run shelter. Could you identify where you are looking?
Well, at the time when we were looking at the Salvation Army building for emergency shelter, the Salvation Army building does not have showers or things for more individual residences or a full service shelter, but the idea was a low barrier shelter similar to weather amnesty outside of weather amnesty months.
Do we own the Salvation Army building?
So the redevelopment commission purchased it last year, I believe, last year.
The business community, can you identify some of the opposition? I have been in contact with multiple business owners and have not had any pushback.
I would say that it's not necessarily pushback. It's what's our plan and what's the longevity of any given proposal. And so, I was running for mayor last year and was not in the city when we did purchase the Salvation Army building and went through the rezoning process. But my understanding is that and actually the returning council members reminded me of this when we gave the update a month and a half ago, that this was to be seen as a temporary solution, and the zoning for weather amnesty extends through this upcoming winter, and it was seen as a temporary solution. So anything that goes beyond that or is any more of an intensive shelter plan, then that would need to go through the full process.
Thank you. I asked you at our first meeting in January about the budgeted money for a homeless coordinator, and you said that money had been, don't know what the terminology would be, reallocated, whatever, because of the Housing First approach that was seen as a better approach to homelessness. Is there salary available still to pay someone the last quarter of the year?
So I'm not sure which coordinator. So there's been a position in DTSB that did outreach in the city, as well as there's I believe it's funded out of either the federal funds or city funds. The coordinated entry list, the one who checks and makes the list for permanent supportive housing units, and those are the two positions that we started the year with. In terms of other coordinator positions, we've discussed various things over the past few years, but those have not made the budget.
Wasn't that part of the recommendations out of this study?
Coordination it wasn't necessary. I would have to go back and look. You're talking about the task force or working group on chronic homelessness from 2017.
The study that was done and the recommendations that came out of that study.
There was talk for the three pillars of that study were the intake center, additional permanent supportive housing units, and figuring out how to better coordinate among different services.
Yes,
and
that.
I think it didn't necessarily say exactly what that was, but that was a pillar of the recommendations. And looking back, just succinctly, and even though a lot of the high profile things have been not being able to cite things, we've made the most progress on the permanent supportive housing units of those three pillars, and clearly have more to do there as well.
Just one last thing. According to the regional council meeting that I was on Thursday, we have 100 people on the waiting list under coordinated entry, and we have no permanent supported housing available for them.
I'm sure that could be the accurate number. That's been around 100 for, like I said earlier, it's been around 100 plus or minus, depending on the counter or who you're talking to. And we've added units over the past few years, but the number seems to be stubbornly around that number.
Just two more questions.
Well, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hammond. Each council member had 2 questions.
Thank you.
And so I would ask that your additional question, just email those to the mayor. Okay, at this point, City Clerk Jones, where we're at?
We are actually at you. You're
okay.
the
Okay, I would just like to thank the mayor for coming, for giving us an update. I do have, a number of questions, and I'll shoot those to you via email, but I also would copy the council as well. They're just general questions. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us, and we'll be having you back as we continue to move forward, especially as we start the budget process. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, now,
Vice President White, I just learned that I do have the minutes from the 8th and the 22nd, so I can read them so that you can vote on them, if you don't mind.
Okay. So you're going to read all the minutes, or have they been?
No, I'm reading the report.
Okay. Okay. No problem. So we'll go back to agenda item number 4, which is the report from the subcommittee on minutes.
Okay, so this is the report of subcommittee on minutes. To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the meeting of the council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved for June 8th and June 22nd.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the report from the subcommittee on minutes for June 8th, and what was the other date?
June 22nd.
And June 22nd. I would like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you so much. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis. Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis. Vice President White.
Aye.
Okay.
The minutes. Okay.
Okay. Got you.
Thank you. The minutes have now been accepted. We'll now, from reports from the city offices, there are no reports at this time. I would like to entertain a motion to resolve into the committee of the whole. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
Okay, 9 ayes.
The motion has passed. Councilwoman McBride?
Thank you. The committee of the whole is now in session. This portion of the council's meetings were bills given a second reading and public hearing. I wish to share with you all that's on the call that the bills that you will be given a second reading and public hearing have been given a first reading and set for a committee meeting and public hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, you will hear from the chairperson of the committee where the bill was discussed and results of their discussion. Ms. Jones, would you please read bill number 12-20? I see Attorney Palmer's hand up.
Okay, my mic isn't on.
That's correct. I believe 1220 was postponed until the next meeting.
Yes, that is. I'm sorry, Vice President. That bill is continued until July 27th. You're muted.
You need to entertain a motion to continue Bill 1220 until July 27.
Thank you. Would someone make a motion for us to continue Bill?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone Bill 1220 until July 27th.
Second.
Can we have the roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Clerk Jones, would you give Bill read 28-20 a second reading?
2820, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of South Bend, Indiana, retroactively amending ordinance number 10691-19 to correct Schreiber's error description.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. Sheila Nisgowsky, the chairperson of Public Works and Property Vacation Committee. This was to correct a Scrivener's error from an ordinance that was passed back in November of 2019. It received a favorable recommendation in committee.
Thank you. Was there a petitioner? Are you
I
the
was
petitioner as well?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Thank you so much. I would like to turn it over to council if you have any questions or comments. If not, I would yield to ask the clerk's office, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor or in opposition of this bill?
Chair McBride, this is Graham from the clerk's office. There's been no one to submit their name to speak in favor or in opposition to this bill. I yield.
Thank you. I will turn it back over to council, the full council. What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to move to full council.
Second.
With a favorable recommendation?
Yes, with a favorable recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. The roll, please.
Councilmember Teschka, Councilmember
Charles, unmute.
Tasker?
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
Vice President White?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Clerk Jones, do you mind giving bill number 2920 a second reading?
2920, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 310 and 320 Walter Street, Councilmanic District Number 5 in the City of South Bend, Indiana, 46614.
Thank you. The Committee of Zoning and Annexation met this afternoon and is bringing us before the full council with a favorable recommendation. Is there a presenter?
Yes, Councilmember McBride, Joe Molnar, zoning specialist with the City of South Bend, offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. I'm going to try to share my screen here to present these, make sure it works. Are individuals able to see the screen?
Not yet, Joe.
We just see your lovely face.
There we go.
There you go.
Awesome. Okay, so this first thing you'll see from us today, this is a rezoning from S1 Suburban Neighborhood 1 to C Commercial along 310 Walter Street. I won't give as long as a presentation as this committee, but brief synopsis: here is Ireland Road, Fellow Street running here. This is the O'Brien Fitness Center and Park, and we're concerned with these parcels here that are shaded. The Gates Automotive Group is wishing to purchase this land and rezone it to C Commercial in order to go from just a simple auto body repair shop to a full-fledged new car dealership. The staff had a couple concerns along Walter Street because of its residential character and more rural character, so that we came up with written commitments. Here is a view of the property. As you can see, it's more rural in nature than you normally find in the city, almost park-like, especially with the large park adjacent to the street. Here is the site plan that they've submitted to us as an illustration of what it might look like. The two written commitments that we came to a conclusion for that led us to have a favorable recommendation are that there will be no access along Walter Street here. So all traffic coming in and out of Gates must come off of Ireland or a side property that also comes off Ireland. That will help keep the nature of the street the way it is, and then it won't increase traffic on Fellow Street either. The second commitment is that there will be a 100-foot buffer from Walter Street that no development can take place on except for appropriate fencing. So the trees that you saw in those earlier photos will remain for now. They have the retention bond here. Any development that will also occur on the site will then be heavily screened because this is a residential district. So it comes forward to you from the from the South Bend Plan Commission with a favorable recommendation subject to those two written commitments I've described. If the petitioner from Gates is here, I'm sure they would also like to say a couple words as well.
If the petitioner is on, could you state your name and address, please, for the record?
Yes, it's Mike Huber with Abbott Marsh Consultants, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana. I think Joel did a great job of kind of summarizing the case. In the interest of brevity, we don't have too much to add. We do agree with the city's commitments. We've worked with the city planning department and feel that this is an adequate plan that allows us to do what we need to do on the site and bring this dealership and about 25 to 30 new jobs to South Bend.
Thank you so much. I will turn it over to council members. Do you have any questions of the presenter or the petitioner at this time? If not, I will open it up to the public. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone out there that's wishing to speak in favor or in opposition of this bill?
Councilmember McBride, no, there's no members of the public wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this bill. I yield.
Thank you so much. At this point, the public hearing on bill number 28-20 is closed. Oh, I'm sorry. 29-20 is now closed. And I am,
I move to send this bill forward to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
thank you. May we have the roll, please? There's a motion and a second. Ms. Jones, the roll call, please.
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Clerk Jones, would you mind giving bill number 30-20 a second reading?
30-20, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 1017 DeMaud Avenue, Councilmanic District Number 1 in the City of South Bend, Indiana, 46616.
Thank you. This came before the Committee of Zoning and Annexation this afternoon, and it's coming to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Is there a presenter and a petitioner?
Yes, there is. Councilmember McBride. Once again, Joe Molnar, zoning specialist with offices on the 14th floor of this building. This is a special exception to allow for a 2-unit dwelling in a U1 urban neighborhood 1 district. It is the site shaded right here. Sorry, computer freaking out on me. The site shaded right here. It's been vacant since at least 2009. And it is on the edge of the neighborhood. Right here is Portage Avenue with California and Denmont splitting off. Here, the NNN Community Center is just across the street. We believe that this is a good development for the city. Here is an image of the site front on. The alley is right here, and this consists of the site that will have the special exception. There's a parking lot. The NNN's parking lot is directly across or directly next to the site. This is a prime example of infill development that we like to see, where there once was a home. We're turning a home there. We think that a 2-unit is worthwhile because of its close proximity to Portage Avenue, and there's a little bit more of a denser part. This also going to a 2-unit development helps something that the city has been dealing with for a while now, which is called the assessment gap. An assessment gap is when if you build a home and say it costs $150,000 in just building costs, but you can only then sell it and it only assesses for $100,000. That $50,000 is the assessment gap, and unfortunately, in a lot of our neighborhoods, that exists. Where if you build a home, you're building it, you can't even sell it for what it was built for. Having more units on the property in this case too helps alleviate that, because you can generate more revenue off the property, which helps close that assessment gap. So this comes forward with a favorable recommendation from the Board of Zoning Appeals. If the petitioner is here, I'm sure they would like to say a few words as well.
Thank you. If the petitioner is on the line, would you mind stating your name and address, please?
If they're here, they might not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. At this time, I will turn it over to the public portion. And I'm sorry, for the council, if there's any questions or comments of the presenter at this time.
You do have a hand, Councilwoman Laurie Hammond.
Thank you so much. I see.
And then followed by Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hammond.
Thank you. I would just like to restate my comment from our committee meeting. There was a great deal of conversation during our campaigns, and most of us made commitments around finding affordable housing in South Bend. These multifamily units allow us to do some of the infill in the neighborhoods to bring in additional housing while allowing them to be affordable units for families. So I want to thank the petitioner, and I am very much in favor of this type of bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chair McBride. I just want to echo Councilwoman Hammond's comments. I think this is an exciting development for District 1, but I also want to thank DCI and our city people in zoning, because they did Hercules work last year in passing the new zoning ordinance, which makes development like this possible. So thank you to our zoning team.
Thank you so much. I also believe I saw the hand of Mr. Councilman Kenneth Lee.
That's
Yes.
correct.
I would just like to say that again, as we said in committee meetings, that affordable housing in the first district is one of the key things that helps to make the community better. And so I think that this is an outstanding opportunity for us to see when city and community people work together, the positive things that they're able to achieve. So I'm excited that this duplex is being built in the first district, and I hope that it will be something that other districts may be able to do.
Thank you, Councilman Warner.
There we go. I just kind of the same as Councilmember Thomas Morgan. It's great to see the shift in the zoning. This was the exact purpose that planning worked so hard on redoing the zoning ordinance, and it's great to see it come to fruition right now to expand the opportunities to put more units in and deal with the funding and assessment gaps. So thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will turn it over to the public portion. Mr. Sparks, are there anyone in the audience that wish to speak in favor or opposition of this bill?
Councilwoman McBride, there's been no one to submit their name to speak in favor or in opposition to this bill. I yield.
Thank you so much. At this point in time, the public portion is now closed. I will turn it back over to the council. What's your pleasure?
Motion to move Bill 3020 to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
I second.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, the roll call, please.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Niskowski.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Bill number 30-20 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. I will entertain a motion to rise from the committee of the whole and report back to the full council.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor, can we have the roll, please?
Councilmember Hammond. Councilmember Hammond. Okay.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Niskowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
The full council is now back in session. This is the portion of our meeting where bills are given a third reading and action is taken regarding bills that were heard during the committee of the whole. At this time, Clerk Jones, will you please give third reading to Bill 20? I want to make sure I have my right one. 2820, please.
2820, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of South Bend, Indiana, retroactively amending ordinance number 10691-19 to correct Schreizner's error in legal description.
Thank you. Prior to asking for a motion, I ask if any council members have any questions or would like to make any statements at this time. Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion to adopt or pass, Bill 28-20.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
I think I heard him say aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 28-20 has been passed. Clerk Jones, will you please give Bill 29-20 a third reading?
2920, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 310, 320 Walter Street, Councilmanic District Number 5, in the City of South Bend, Indiana, 46614.
Council members, do you have any questions or would like to make any statements at this time? If not, I would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 29-20 and really also make notice with the 2 written commitments, please.
I move to pass or move for passage of Bill 2920 and with the written commitments.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 29-20 with the written commitments has been passed. Will you please give third reading to Bill 3020?
3020, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 1017 DeMaud Avenue, Councilmanic District Number 1, in the City of South Bend, Indiana, 46616.
Are there any questions or comments from council members at this time? If not, I would like to entertain a motion.
A motion to move Bill 3020 for passage.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Bill 30-20 has been passed. We're now entering into the resolution portion of our meeting. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 20-19?
20-19, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, honoring and thanking the men and women of the South Bend Police Department.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Vice President White, this resolution 2019 comes out of the Health and Public Safety Committee meeting with a unanimous favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to the sponsor or sponsors to present Resolution 20-19. We do ask that you state your name and address, please.
Yes, this is Councilman Jake Teshka, 241 Chester Drive. I won't take as much time as we did in committee. Just wanted to again say that Council Member
Can you hear him? I can't hear him.
Introducing this resolution as a way to is a legitimate and valid. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're speaking to the mic.
Yeah. So Councilmember Sheila Nitsgansky and I are introducing this resolution.
Still can't hear you, sir.
Honor and okay. I'm talking right into the microphone.
Well, you probably have to project your voice a little bit higher then.
Okay.
Don't yell.
Councilmember Sheila Nitsgansky and I are introducing this resolution as a way to honor and thank the men and women of our South Bend Police Department for all the good work that they do. And we think that this is a timely and necessary resolution given officer shortages, COVID-19, as well as other national sentiment, as we discussed in committee earlier. Again, this is among the legitimate and necessary conversations that we are having as a nation on what given a spot in our police departments across the country. I want to make sure that we are recognizing the vast majority of officers that go to work every day and do the right thing. And so that's what this is aimed to do. And as I said, I won't take up as much time as in committee, so I'll leave that and pass it to Councilmember Nitsgansky if she's got anything to add.
Thank you, Councilman Teshka. Just that, as he said, it's to support our men and women in uniform on the South Bend Police Department, supporting our public safety initiatives in the city. And during a pandemic, when many of us were able to stay home, our men and women were out in our community, whether it be for the various calls that they encounter on a daily basis. But not only that, just serving and protecting our community. So I signed on with Jake Teshka because I do believe in our public safety and I believe in our South Bend Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Prior to moving to the public hearing portion, council members, do you have any questions, comments at this time?
I would just like to say thank you for the sponsors of the bill, bringing it forth regarding our specifically police men and women in our community during this time. So thank you so much for bringing the bill.
Thank you. Councilmember Henry Davis.
Yes, I want to ask Mr. Teshka, what was the basis for this particular resolution, given the fact that we are revisiting and working on reformation with the police department, working on a citizens review board. You have a very contentious environment across the nation as it relates to community and police relations. And, the elephant in the room, we do know that you're running for state rep as well. And so it's just kind of like, why now and why are you pushing this idea? Given the fact that the council has stated publicly our support for the police department. We've done it through, I think it was a proclamation, if I remember correctly. And we've done it in other ways as well. And so it just seems a bit divisive.
So is that a question or a statement, Councilman?
Well, the question was, what caused you to put this out here, given the things that I listed? That was the question.
Okay. Yeah. So, what caused me to put this out there, was the fact that I've talked to many of our
Hey, Jake, your phone, your line is breaking up really bad.
Morale is low. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
No, it's not that I can't hear you. Your microphone is breaking up, so I'm catching every other word. I'm sure everybody else is as well. I don't know what that is.
Let me try something different here. Is that any better?
Yeah, but when you get to talking, we miss every other word. It's not the volume. We just don't get to hear your full statement.
Is everyone on mute that's not speaking?
Okay, is this any better?
That's better, yes.
Okay. So the purpose of this was, again, that I have talked to many of our men and women in the South Bend Police Department. Again, at committee, I talked about the time that I've spent over the last week, but that's not, that's not the only time. I've spent much time in the last, since my time on council with the folks in the police department. And again, shortages, we've got low morale, and as I mentioned in committee, there are sentiments out there that all cops are bad, and so I don't believe we have. We've never done a resolution like this. We did, again, the pay raise was tabled, and again, that I understand the reasons why that happened, but that did have an effect on morale, and so I wanted to do something that if we couldn't do something in terms of compensation to make the folks feel like they are appreciated by their city leaders, that we would do something in by way of this resolution. And so the proclamation that we did earlier in the year was particularly singling out fallen officers. This is singling out the officers that are currently working day in and day out, kind of like the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And so again, this is just to commend and honor and thank the men and women for going to work every day and doing the good stuff that they do.
Thank you.
So you're believing or thinking that upon the passage of this particular resolution is going to boost the morale of police officers?
Councilman Davis, I can tell you from conversations that I've had with officers that they're not, they want to know that their city leaders support them in what they do. And so this would be a good step in that direction. Yes.
What gives them the impression, or give you an impression?
Davis, I'm going to
hold on. You're going to limit me to 2 questions?
Well, I think that as you begin to look at the resolution, any council member has a right to bring forth a resolution.
No, I'm asking questions. You didn't tell me I had to ask a certain type of question. I'm asking questions, and I'm allowed that.
Okay.
They're germane to the topic.
Okay, continue with your questions, and I'll move on to Councilmember Morgan.
So you are feeling like that the morale, I think you said the morale was low. Is that what you're saying? So is this predicated on the fact that the council decided not to deal with the pay raises? Or is this because you just think it's a good idea because you go to roll?
Okay.
I mean,
you can't hear them.
Okay, Councilmember Tesfa, we're still having a hard time hearing you at this time.
I'm trying to.
So the question was, shoot. Did you hear the question from Councilmember Davis?
If I understand the question correctly, it's again why I think it's a good idea, right? Is that how I heard it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, I think it's a good idea, and again, it's not a feeling.
No, that's not what I said. I was asking about an understanding of morale.
Okay.
You're basing this on some type of idea of morale, and that we have gone through this pay raise discussion, and so I'm trying to get to the crux or to the root of this. given the timing of everything that has occurred here in this city and across the nation. And so
that's exactly why. That's exactly why. I mean, the timing is.
well, because you're
right.
saying that people are making a decision.
Excuse me, council members. Okay, we need to make sure as we ask questions and as individuals are responding to them.
Councilmember White, this is Graham from the clerk's office. I've muted everyone as there's a lot of feedback.
Can you hear me? I'm not with the feedback.
Somebody may be having their phone on as well, close to the mic.
Mute. Is that better? I'm going to.
Do you have? Yeah. Do you have another device that's logged on?
I'm gonna see if I can log back in. Okay. But in terms of
We can't hear you, Miss White.
Your mic is off.
See, something's wrong. So I'm gonna have to come back in, okay?
Okay.
Councilwoman McBride, will you handle the meeting till I come back in?
Yes. Thank you so much. What I will do, am I vibrating as well?
Yes.
I think that there must be people that's unmuted that's making the echo. Am I still echoing?
Yes.
Can we unmute? Can you, the clerk's office, mute everyone?
Councilmember McBride, we've been doing that. It's solely Councilmember White's microphone at this point in time.
Oh, so I'm not echoing anymore.
You are not providing any feedback. No, it is solely Councilmember McBride's microphone.
Okay. Thank you so much. What I will do, I believe what Councilwoman White was doing was trying to move on with the recommendation for the resolution. And if I heard her correctly, one of the comments that she made was anyone had the right to submit a resolution. And then I believe after Mr. Davis's last comment, there were some hands that were being raised from other council members. So at this time, Mr. Davis, I'll turn to the other council members, and when Ms. White come back on, if there was something in addition that you would like to say, I would yield back to her with that. So I see Ms. Thomas Morgan.
Thank you, Councilwoman McBride. I just want to remind everybody that this is a resolution honoring and thanking the men and women of the South Bend Police Department. And we owe them a debt of gratitude for the work that they do that puts their lives at risk, especially during COVID. I fully support this bill. Thank you to the co-sponsors for bringing it to us.
Thank you. I would also turn, I believe I see Councilman Warner's hand up.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just want to be really clear about the words and text, right? Because that's what we're passing. We're passing words and text, and it didn't get read. And I want to make sure I wholeheartedly support this resolution. I wholeheartedly support our officers. This has been a very trying and stressful time for our entire community as we get through this conflict. And we must all work together. We must all have input. We must all have opportunity throughout this. And so I'm going to read the end of the resolution, and it says, now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana as follows. The South Bend Common Council upholds and affirms law enforcement as necessary and a vital profession within our community. The South Bend Common Council honors with gratitude the men and women of the South Bend Police Department for their dedicated, selfless service to our city. That's what the resolution is about. I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other?
I'm back now. I think I've got my system working. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you so much for Councilmember McBride. We have Councilwoman Laurie Hammond. You may go now.
Thank you. I just have one point of clarity in the resolution. There is a statement that 80% of the officers were thinking about moving on or resigning. The document that brought that percentage forward said that 80% of those surveyed. So I don't know that that's completely accurate. Secondly, I just want to state publicly that I support all of our first responders and I thank them for their service and the sacrifices they make every day. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also echo, if there's no other comments from council members prior to going to the public portion, that I too support our public safety, our firefighters, first responders, and really commend them for the work that they have done and continue to do on behalf of our citizens as well as our community. This is a resolution just recognizing and expressing appreciation and gratitude for our public safety force. If there's no other comments, I will now go to the public hearing portion. This is a time that individuals can speak in support of this bill. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone waiting to speak in support of this resolution?
Vice President White, this is Grant from the clerk's office. There's been nobody to submit their name to speak in favor or in opposition of this bill. I have seen Councilmember Lee, though, raise his hand for a comment.
And I think that
we did
have
just
someone.
receive, yes, one hand. It looks like, yep, so.
Before we go to the public hearing, I want to make sure that council members have every opportunity to, they want to make comment. So we go to first district council member Kenneth Lee, and then we go to the public hearing portion.
I just want to say that it is so important with the work that we do for Save Outreach and what the police endure every day. It's important to say thank you. It's important to let people know that they appreciate it. A thank you goes a long, long way. So I support this, and I just wanted to be on record saying that it is important to say thank you to people who respond to all various types of situations and keeping South Bend safe.
Thank you. We'll now go to the public hearing portion. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone waiting to speak in support of this bill?
Yes, I saw one individual in the lobby, Ms. Lakita Hughes. Lakita, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Laquita Hughes, 1422 Marine Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46613. Am I unmuted?
No, we can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. Yes. Hello, everyone. I would just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity, just as a standing member, to take part in these meetings. I definitely agree that gratitude goes a long way. I too am an essential worker as a child care provider, and I definitely would like to say I did everything that I could to stay open, to remain open for my essential parents, ranging from police officers, those working in the health.
Mrs. Hughes, I think we've lost you. Can you hear us? Mr. Sparks?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. There's a bad connection here. Yeah, and so I just wanted to say that timing is everything. Being as a standing member and a leader in the community as an ordained minister, I think that timing, I would definitely like to challenge the council in regards to just being mindful regarding timing. There's a lot going on in our community.
We've lost you again. Okay.
Invocation to the city. Did you guys hear me? I said,
yes,
we're trying to bring law
in and out.
enforcement. Okay. I've been fading in and out during the whole meeting. It's something to do with this link. I just want to say, I would just like to just bring it to you guys' awareness and to challenge you to just be mindful of timing as it pertains to the residents in the city of South Bend, because there's a lot going on as a leader in the community myself, the residents, there's so much going on, just an uproar with trying to bring love and unity and trying to bridge that gap with the police and the residents. And I'm not saying, that no one.
Okay, you're breaking up again. Okay.
Timing, so White, that they're not. Thank you.
Can you, okay, so that.
Yes, Councilmember White, that exhausts the speakers list.
Vice President White?
Yes.
Point of order. When you were logging back on and I was taking over Mr. Davis, I am not sure if he was finished or if you guys' dialogue was finished, and I do not want to overlook him and be out of order.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
I'm fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The public hearing portion is now closed. I would now entertain a motion regarding Resolution 20-19.
I would like to make a motion to move Bill 2019 for passage.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Teschka. Councilmember Teschka. Councilmember Niskoski.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Resolution 20-19 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 20-21?
2021, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, recognizing and expressing appreciation and gratitude to our community's first responders, medical and hospital personnel, and all other essential individuals who have continued to provide services and necessities to our residents during the coronavirus pandemic.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
There is, Vice President White. Resolution 2021 comes out of the Health and Public Safety Committee with a unanimous favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I will now ask the sponsor or sponsors to present Resolution 20-21. We do ask that you state your name and address for the record, please.
Sharon McBride, 415 East Broadway.
Troy Warner, 623 Marquette Avenue.
And what we'll do is I'll just have Councilman Warner just read the first half of the bill, and I will continue from there to not prolong the time any further.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, recognizing and expressing appreciation and gratitude to our community's first responders, medical and hospital personnel, and all other essential individuals who have continued to provide services and necessities to our residents during the coronavirus pandemic. Whereas a global pandemic caused by coronavirus disease, COVID-19, has caused societies across the world to shut down in efforts to reduce the spread, flatten the curve, and limit the deaths from severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, the disease caused by COVID-19. And whereas on March 6th, 2020, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb declared a statewide public health disaster state of emergency by Executive Order 20-02 and extending the state of emergency on multiple times to at least July 31st of 2020. And whereas Governor has also declared a stay-at-home order effective in March, which excluded only individuals who were needed to carry on essential functions necessary to keep communities functioning. And whereas our community's essential individuals, including all first responders such as fire, police, and emergency medical personnel, continue to receive necessary goods and services. And whereas these essential individuals have continued to meet the needs of the city and its residents during this emergency and otherwise, and to provide necessary goods and services to South Bend's residents and families, and provide and process of the performing of those functions have put themselves and their family members at heightened risk of COVID-19.
Whereas, although each and every one of the countless works of each of these individuals deserves the recognition, appreciation, and gratitude of the Common Council, there are not enough words and time to adequately do so. And whereas even now, as COVID-19 pandemic continues to threaten our community along with the rest of the world, the Common Council wants these essential individuals to know that their sacrifices are not overlooked or unappreciated. Now therefore be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend as follows. Section 1, the South Bend Common Council hereby acknowledges and recognizes all of the essential individuals serving our community during this pandemic, including but not limited to first responders such as fire, police, and emergency medical personnel, medical and hospital personnel, including doctors, nurses, and all staff, solid waste, street department, and all other city employees, food service and grocery and retail workers, and all others whose daily work is required to ensure that the residents of South Bend continue to receive necessary goods and services. Section 2, the South Bend Common Council hereby publicly express its utmost appreciation and gratitude to all the essential individuals whose daily work has kept our city functioning and who continue to be essential to the residents of South Bend for them to receive necessary goods and services during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Prior to going to the public hearing portion, I do know that this resolution was heard during the committee portion, but I want to see if any council members, if you have any questions for the sponsors regarding resolution 20-21. Any questions from council members? Seeing none, then we'll move now to the public hearing portion. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Laurie Hammond.
I would just like to restate my support for all of the essential workers. As a teacher, I know how concerning the pandemic was for everyone, and people have put their lives at risk to serve others, and that is very commendable, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other council members at this time?
Vice, I would like to say as a sponsor of the bill is that I appreciate everyone and even asking for prayers and thoughts of the workers that when we talk about opening back up schools and thinking about teachers and the students as well. I yield.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public hearing portion. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone waiting to speak in support of this resolution?
Vice President White, this is Graham from the clerk's office. There have been no individuals from the public wishing to speak in favor or in opposition to this bill. I yield.
Thank you so much. The public hearing is now closed. Council members, I would like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded.
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teska,
Aye.
Councilmember Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Resolution 20-21 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 20-22?
20-22, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, addressing the emerging homelessness crisis, strongly encouraging Mayor Mueller to promptly prepare and present to the Common Council an emergency temporary aid and shelter program to respond to the emerging homeless crisis, and to prepare an ordinance declaring a state of emergency relating to the current homeless crisis, authorizing the suspension of certain regulations to facilitate the emergency temporary aid and shelter program, and providing for approval of such emergency services contracts as are necessary to support this program.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, this was brought to the full council with no recommendation.
I'll move to the sponsors. I'll ask for your presentation regarding this resolution as well. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. This is Councilwoman Laurie Hammond, 2658 Tomahawk Trail, South Bend, 46628. And I would like to read through the resolution, and then I would like to make some clarifying comments before it is open to the council. Okay, resolution of the Common Council on Homelessness. Whereas the city of South Bend continues to experience large numbers of individual and families who are homeless due to factors such as job loss, family crisis, substance abuse, economic reasons, mental health issues, and loss of temporary housing. And whereas the pattern of stagnant and declining wages and shortage of affordable housing has contributed to the rising numbers of homeless individuals and families. And whereas the homelessness crisis is occurring in local communities and neighborhoods throughout South Bend to the extent of requiring a declaration of a state of emergency in order to provide emergency services and shelter for the growing number of unsheltered homeless individuals and families. And whereas point in time counts, sorry, I'm having a hard time saying this, point in time counts conducted during the summer of 2019 identified no less than 109 chronically homeless persons, which number is suspected to be rising as COVID-19 pandemic continues and the lack of housing alternative continues. And whereas point in time counts reveal that on any given night, large numbers of people, including families, experience homelessness and can be found sleeping on the streets and in parks, cars, abandoned buildings, tent encampments, and other places not meant for human habitation. And whereas the supply of available temporary and permanent supportive housing for homeless persons residing in South Bend is inadequate to meet the need, resulting in long wait lists for some shelters and long waits for supportive housing. and a rising number of unsheltered households. And whereas on any given night, homeless encampments in South Bend may be occupied by 50 or more persons, and whereas our community is facing an imminent end of a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, which will add scores of additional homeless in our community. And whereas homeless encampments continue without suitable sanitation facilities or proper trash receptacles, which often result in contamination by garbage and human waste, causing occupants to face serious health and sanitation issues. And whereas conditions in homeless encampments are personally stressful, exposing occupants to a greater risk of contracting COVID-19, forcing occupants to suffer with extreme temperatures in excess of 90 degrees and other harmful weather conditions, which exacerbate common health risks such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and asthma, because there is no suitable place for proper storage of medications and syringes. And whereas, according to the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council, persons experiencing homelessness are 3 to 4 times more likely to die prematurely than their housed counterparts and experience an average life expectancy as low as 41 years. And whereas healthcare services are not effective when a person's health is continually compromised by street and shelter conditions, and inpatient hospitalizations or residential drug treatment and mental health care do not have lasting impact when the patient is returned to the homeless environment. And whereas conditions in homeless encampments that are dangerous to human health include accumulating garbage, which becomes a food source for vermin, vectors, organisms that transmit disease or parasites, and related pathogens, lack of proper food storage and clean dishes that can facilitate the spread of foodborne diseases, lack of sanitary facilities to dispose of human and animal feces waste, possibly contaminating ground surface water supplies and transmitting disease, improper disposal of discarded medical and sharp waste, accumulation of combustible materials which could ignite, poor hygiene, which contributes to dental and skin problems, and the victimization of the homeless by both sheltered and non-sheltered persons. And whereas the conditions arise from human-made events and are contributing to and will continue to contribute to significant human suffering, thereby creating an immediate need to provide temporary aid and shelter for homeless persons occupying these encampments, regardless of where in the city they may be found. And whereas the housing and homelessness crisis presents an existing and ongoing threat of significant harm to human health and life, requiring immediate action. And whereas residents of homeless encampments have needs that include the provision of social, public, and mental health services, stability, storage, safety, portable drinking water, solid waste disposal, and human waste disposal. And whereas many of these conditions can be mitigated through interim measures designed to meet the immediate survival and safety needs of these persons occupying homeless encampments, such as provisions of hygiene facilities, trash collection, sanitary facilities, temporary shelter and outreach and gateway services. And whereas the Common Council finds that it is in the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare for the Common Council to publicly and strongly encourage the mayor to declare a housing emergency and to authorize an emergency program for establishment of temporary housing and aid stations to address basic humanitarian needs in areas with significant concentration of homeless persons, and to authorize emergency contracts to provide aid and temporary shelter services to such locations.
Take a breath. I got it now.
Thank you.
Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1, Mayor Mueller is strongly encouraged to promptly prepare and present to the Common Council an emergency temporary aid and shelter program to respond to the homelessness crisis, including a 24-hour shelter. Section 2, Mayor Mueller is strongly encouraged to promptly prepare and present to the Common Council an ordinance declaring a state of emergency relating to the current homeless crisis, authorizing the suspension of certain regulations and facilities in emergency temporary aid and shelter program, and providing for approval a such emergency services contracts as are necessary to support this program. Section 3, Mayor Mueller should order the immediate renovation of the occupant rooms wing of the former Salvation Army building through the use of the remaining CDBG CD funds. Section 4, Mayor Mueller should order the evaluation, repair, and renovations of the city-owned potential permanent scatter housing throughout the city of South Bend, as well as begin the construction of the pending homeless apartment building, which already has funding secured. Section 5, the city administration should immediately use the RFP to secure care professionals to establish a 24-hour bridge bed program of the former Salvation Army building. Section 6, the city administration should immediately issue an RFP to secure. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I just read over the same thing. Section 6, the city administration should coordinate with the St. Joseph County Health Department to secure the availability of COVID-19 testing for homeless and homeless services providers. Section 7, the city administration should immediately make available PPE for the homeless residents and homeless service providers. Section 8, the city administration and Mayor Mueller should proceed immediately in the hiring of a coordinator or Azar for the homeless services. Section 8, the city administration should provide monthly reports of Common Council's tracking CDBG coronavirus funds expenditures tracking among all continuum of care providers.
Thank you. A couple points I would like to cover. To be honest with all of my council friends, I had to step away after that committee meeting so that I could pray. Those of you that don't know me well, I am driven by the social doctrine of my faith. One of the primary premises of that doctrine is solidarity. So I am here, and this document is brought forward so that I stand in solidarity, not only with the homeless, but also with the individuals who own property around this city. And I recognize their need for action. The second premise is that this resolution addresses the need for the common good. This will take care of economic issues. This will help to protect the homeless and those that own property, protecting property values, the common good. And finally, the dignity of the human person. There is no one that can walk through the tent encampments that exist and say that those people are being allowed to live with dignity. They absolutely are not. And it is unconscionable to think that we could do nothing, to stand by and do nothing. There was a mention that we don't have the money. So as I mentioned, and as was confirmed by the mayor, there is COVID money that can be used for an emergency shelter. I also sent around to the council some information about the amount of money that the city does have, and I would like to read that so that it can be entered into public record. The city received a supplemental distribution of COVID money, which is $1.3 million. They received public safety lit, $936,000, and seeded money of $1.3 million in May of 2020. The public safety money cannot be used for directly for housing the homeless, but the rest of the money is unrestricted and can be used for any public purpose. The Comptroller's Office is likely concerned about the decline in income tax in 2021 and 2022 due to the pandemic. I am not trying to say this is not a real concern, but South Bend has large cash reserves in those funds. There is $11.9 million in our COVID Fund 404. There is $17.7 million in the seeded Fund 408. The General Fund 101 has $32.2 million as of April 30th. I cannot in good conscience tell the neighbors in Monroe Park and tell the people living in abject squalor that we cannot spend some of those reserves to allow them some human dignity. The question came up as to who owns the Salvation Army building, and the mayor confirmed the city owns that. And there was also a statement that the resolution is too harsh and it could make the mayor mad and potentially is stepping outside of our purview of what the law allows. We are making suggestions, not mandates. We are not usurping the mayor's power in any way whatsoever. We are asking him to show more compassion for the individuals in this city. And it is fully within his power to do so. He can either pass an state of emergency through his emergency powers, or he can declare an executive order. And I would challenge my fellow council members to list in detail, after listening to the mayor, what specifically is his plan for the homeless as of today. I yield.
Councilmember Davis, as the other sponsor, do you have any comments before I would go to the council members?
No, I concur with Laurie and her comments. I just want our council people as well to not only, pay attention to the homeless individuals, but to the community and the tax-paying residents, voters, and citizens that are impacted as well over in that area. It's twofold problem. And so if we only concentrate on the less desirable discussion, remember the people that are actually homeowners in that area in such a way that we are working towards a brighter day for them. But I think at the top of the list are the people without housing, and they need our help.
Okay, thank you. I'll now go to any council members. Do you have any questions or would like to make any statements prior to moving to the public hearing portion? Council members? Again, I see no one. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Thank you, Chair White. For those of you who may not have been in the committee meeting and heard our vigorous discussion there, I think that it's important to be able to clarify some points. And Councilwoman Hammond presented some clarifications as she understood them. However, there remains, in terms of the content of the bill itself, some questions about the power that the mayor has to declare a state of emergency for the crisis using Indiana State Code for local disaster emergency, which is, for any of you who want to look that up, is Indiana Code 10-14-3-29. I'm very familiar with it because I helped to draft a bill early on in COVID for the council to allow the mayor to extend local disaster emergency using that code. So there are still questions and concerns about elements of this bill that are clearly in the administration. So the council has no authority for the administrative functions within the bill under separation of powers. And to the extent that the bill encourages the mayor to encroach on powers of the council, such as submitting an ordinance, it is the council's job to pass that ordinance. Is also the council's job to appropriate funds. There are certain protocols and procedures in place in terms of being able to renovate buildings and to order funds that require other bodies of government. And so I share that with you as some broader learning and education. That said, I understand the sponsor's intent of the bill. I know it has been frustrating. I have heard the frustration of the neighbors of Monroe Park. I have heard and talked to our agency providers, and it's been a difficult time for them and frustrating as well during COVID. This has not been easy on anyone. We all want and are committed to a plan that gets to some solutions. And I'd like people to hear that I, and I believe others on council as well, are committed to working with the mayor to get to some solutions. What I don't, as I just said, the concerns I have are with some of, with the demands of the bill itself, and what is viable. But I do not agree with the manner and the spirit of which this resolution is put forth. We all have and exercise our own powers of influence. And there are some on the council who would like to exercise that power through resolutions, and I respect that, and that's totally fine. We all have the ability to do that. There are others of us on the council who would like to get to solutions constructively and not through confrontation. And I feel that the conversations that I have had with the mayor and continue to have with the mayor have been moving us to this point. Those of you who were not here to hear the mayor's remarks, I was pleased with the updates and developments that he had provided tonight. Was thrilled to be able to hear that the implementation team would be meeting soon, and I trust, having spoken to him about such an idea, that those will be the right people around the table to be able to put heads together, to think about, to consider viable solutions moving forward in the short term and in the long term. So I heard that, and I support that, and know that that's been something that they've been working on. There are budget concerns that I don't want to go into here, but I'll just end my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other council member prior for me going to the public hearing portion?
Vice President White, could I just clarify a couple things?
Yes, I do have a comment.
Yeah, Councilwoman Sheila Niskoski.
Thank you.
And we're going to try to keep our comments, down, and then we can go to the public hearing portion, then we come back to the resolution.
Thank you.
Sheila Niskoski.
Thank you. As Ms. Tomas Morgan stated, it was a very heated debate in the committee today. And I guess that's what happened when people's passions run high on a subject, especially one as important as this. And I think we're all in agreement that this is very important. It's important for the community, it's important for the residents, and it's important that we have the discussion about the people that are living in tents homeless, chronically homeless. And I'm not going to rehash everything that was discussed, but I just want to say that I do have some issues with it. I didn't get to speak in committee because everybody was speaking over one another, and I was not given an opportunity to say what I felt about it. The one thing that troubles me a bit is authorizing the suspension of certain regulations. And granting the state of emergency doesn't mean that he can forego whatever these suspensions of certain regulations, whether that be code enforcement or capacity in a building, or if it has a sprinkler system, who's going to be responsible for drug treatment? What happens if somebody has to be taken to a hospital? There has to be care providers. And although that is stated pretty clearly throughout this, the other things that I kept hearing was suggestions about compassion, commerce over people. Those comments are not constructive in any way. And although I don't have all the answers for the chronic homelessness, I do know that the administration is working on it. Maybe not as fast as some people would like, and I understand that. I feel I would not want to have that happening, having a tent city set up next to me. But I would hope that together we can work our way through it. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, and I think that this resolution was written up with good intentions, but there's just too many things in it in the way that it's worded that are not clarified well enough for me. And I'm going to hope that moving forward that the panel that the mayor is getting together, that they can come up with a solution to this. I just don't know, to be honest with you, how quickly that can be. But in the manner that this is written in, like I said, there's just too many questions for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Henry Davis, then we go to the public hearing portion. If no other council members would like to make comments, please.
We're just simply asking the mayor to make a decision. He can take out what he wants to take out. He can use whatever he chooses to use with this resolution. We're asking him to make a decision. I don't know anything about any other meetings that he's having. I don't feel confident about any meetings that he's having because I'm not in those meetings. The meetings that I've had with him, and even going to his office on Friday afternoon to talk with him about what was happening in Monroe Park, were all conversations that were unmet. He didn't even call me back. the conversation that he had with the council earlier when we started the council meeting, I'm still not confident that anything is going on. I don't know what he's implementing. I don't even know what the implementation team is. None of us do, unless he's talking to other people individually and leaving us out. And if you're an at-large member, the second district is still yours too. Not only mine, but it's yours as well. You get the emails that I send out about what's going on in the second district, just as well as the department heads or the city workers. I include you on purpose so you do know what's going on. So if you are at large, the second district is yours as well. Those people voted for you too. So let's not, take the discussion and say that somebody else is working on it when we have no idea of the work that is being done. I don't know. And it's my district, and it has been my district for 3 terms. So I don't know what memo you guys are getting, but if you do get a memo, you should probably forward it over to me because I am totally in the dark. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure that council members, I know Councilwoman McBride said that she had a hard time staying connected. I don't know if she's back on. I would like to go to the public to see if there's anyone wishing to speak in favor. Mr. Sparks, do we have anyone waiting?
Yes, in fact, we have quite an extensive speakers list, Madam Vice President.
We'll let you know they have 3 minutes. And would like
sure. So I yield the floor to you to give any announcement of how you'd like to operate this procedure at this time.
We're at the public hearing portion. At this time, those wishing to speak in support of Resolution 20-22, we do ask that you state your name and your address. I'm going to ask Councilman Troy Warner to keep time, and then we move to the other speakers. At this portion, those who are speaking in support of the resolution, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Madam Vice President. The first individual is Mike Coman. Mike, at this time, please unmute yourself. Say your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Can you hear me? I'm Mike Coleman.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Mike Coleman, president of the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association. I'm honored to finally speak on behalf of all of our Monroe Park residents concerning this current issue of Tent City. Monroe
you
Park
state your address for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. 508 South Street. Can I get my 3 minutes reset?
Well, we'll start you right now, 3 minutes.
All right. Yes, I'm Mike Coleman, president of the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association, and we've been home to the chronically homeless and their attendant predators for the last 2 months. 2 weeks ago, when I finally was given an opportunity to speak with our mayor, Mr. Mueller, I told him we needed help. Our neighborhood could not do this. I said that we need help now. I said that you could change the situation immediately and have this tent city move to a more sustainable space out of our neighborhood where everyone could be served in a more secure fashion. We are stuck with an extremely destabilizing neighborhood situation, which was completely unnecessary given the history of this crisis and issue. Under no standard of reasonable judgment should the chronically homeless been placed in any neighborhood in tents during a global pandemic. Let me say something about Monroe Park and our neighborhood association to help give some context to this issue. My family of 3 small children moved here in 2002. We soon discovered that not many good things were happening here at that time, and not too many people knew who was who and what was what. I met Gil Michelle, our neighbor 2 blocks down, and we agreed that we wanted more neighbors to know one another. So we started knocking on doors in 2003, 2004, inviting neighbors to join us in forming this association. Our first meeting was at my house on the front porch with about 10 or 12 neighbors, and we have not missed a month since. We adopted bylaws, elected officers, became a 501c3, and started publishing a neighborhood newsletter. We worked with Charlotte Pfeiffer, our second district council at the time. We worked with Mayor Steve Lickey's administration, with Chris Dressel, Pam Meyer, and Liz Meredek. We worked with Panzica Building Corp. We worked with Haircrafters, Zolman Tire, Midas Muffler, all the business in our surrounding area. We worked extensively with the South Bend Police Department, especially Lieutenant Pat Hecklinski and now Patrolman Keenan Lane. We've worked with code enforcement. We picked up in the last 2 years, we picked up 16 tons of garbage in our neighborhood. We've worked with the Neighborhood Resource Corporation, Diana Hess, for many years. She's always been kind in helping us with small grants so that we could feed our block party attendees. Last year, our 15th annual block party was our most successful. We hosted and fed 200 people, half of whom were our homeless neighbors and friends. We played music, had slip and slides. We gave a clothes giveaway. We had a raffle of over 50 products. The year before, we served 185 people, and the year before that, we served 150 people. We've been growing, and this year's block party, our 16th annual, is in doubt because of this pandemic. We joined Sarah Stewart in starting one of the original Unity Gardens, and thankfully, our city has always been able to help us water that garden. We've provided free food for hundreds of neighbors over the last 12 years, and thanks to our neighbor, Jenny Bell, we became the first neighborhood in the city to construct and install a free take a book, leave a book night library. It's constantly being used and restocked. It has never been empty. Jenny has allowed us to use the north side of her home for outdoor movie nights in the Unity Garden. Henry Davis led the city in passing our urban chicken ordinance. Regina Williams Preston is now in our third year of having maximum allotment of linear feet of sidewalk replacement of Monroe Park. We're getting new streets. We're getting new speed bumps. We started a strategic plan with Habitat for Humanity. We have four committees in that strategic plan. Housing and land.
Time is up, Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Coleman, can you summarize your comments? We can, because you have 3 minutes.
Oh, Councilmember White, I did mute him as per the bylaws. Okay. The next speaker is Marianne Wilson. If Marianne would like to yield her time, but she is now the next on the speakers list.
Okay, then we'll go with Marianne Wilson. You have
Please
3
unmute
minutes.
yourself.
Well, can you make sure that the 3 minutes before it ends, like give them 30 seconds?
Yes, definitely will. I would ask Councilmember Troy Warner, can you give the speakers indication when they've spoken for 2 minutes and then the last 30 minutes? Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Yeah, this is Mike again. I would summarize quickly. The Monroe Park Neighborhood Association has become a coalition of neighbors. So please help us do good. That's what we want. The city had a plan as recently as 2018 to solve the tent city problem. The Monroe Park Neighborhood Association was not considered a stakeholder at that time. Now we are. And now we're at the epicenter of this tragedy. Let's fix this now, tomorrow, not next week. Somebody please exert some political will. This can be solved in a week. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to Marianne Wilson. You have 3 minutes, and you will receive a warning notification from Councilmember Troy Warner. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Marianne Wilson, 531 South St. Joseph Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. My family lives catty corner from Doulos Chapel, and so we are right across the street from the tent city for the last 2 months. And also on our side yard is where a lot of the spillover activity, people who are not formally part of the tent city, but who have been congregating and who have set up additional tents have been living. And as someone who's been on the front lines of this, we have seen a dramatic and seriously negative impact on our family life and also for our neighbors. Things have been much less safe, much less peaceful, with fights, with weapons, drug use, drug dealing. And I've been working with our neighborhood association, with partners through a number of very hardworking conversations over these last few weeks. And we are calling on the mayor to exert leadership and are very much in support of this resolution. Some of the things that we want to address, a number of us on the call, are the quality of life for us as neighbors, just as I was mentioning, and also for the people who are living in tents, how this is affecting us. The context of all of this in a pandemic and how this reality as a public health crisis. We have people who have studied the cost-benefit analysis of the proposed bridge bed program and how it will not be perhaps the drain on resources that some fear that it would be. We have also discussed the value of an intensive effort of accompaniment for 1 year, which is what we're asking. Not just that this is some other short-term measure, but the real difference that it could make for my family, for everyone in this neighborhood, everyone who otherwise would be next to a tent city in the upcoming year, and also especially for those individuals who could receive that kind of intensive care in the bridge bed program that we are suggesting. We also like to speak to the need for immediate emergency shelter in the short term, but also longer term planning to address chronic homelessness. And we also would like to request clarity and accountability of the funds that are available to the city and the county in order to address these issues. I really appreciated earlier when one of the council members mentioned how much she would not like for this to be happening outside of her house. And just yesterday, my 7-year-old was reading a book on the front porch and ran in and said, "Mom, I just saw somebody, hit over the head with a baseball bat. I think you need to call the police." Things like this have become a regular occurrence, and it is absolutely not the way it should be for anybody. It should not be in the heart of a neighborhood. And we believe that there really is a chance for this to not happen in Monroe Park neighborhood, but also, thank you, but also not to migrate to another neighborhood, because we are aware that without some kind of concerted effort, this is just going to go from place to place. And I think that that is unacceptable. And I truly believe that our city can do better with the kind of political will and the investment of resources that are available to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, who's next?
Phoenix Pedro. At this time, Phoenix, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please say your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Sparks, will you call his name once again, please?
Sure, Phoenix. I saw Phoenix unmute.
Yes.
And now muted again and unmuted now. We just can't hear.
You want to move forward, then we can come back and
Sure.
Get on, please.
Margaret File. Margaret, at this time, please state your name and address for the record. Unmute yourself and proceed with your remarks. Margaret File.
Mr. Sparks, will you go to the next?
Sure. Alan
we have
Bean.
2 to come back. We'll circle back.
Alan Bean. BN.
Hello, this is Alan Bien.
Yes,
Can you
please
hear
state
me?
your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, my name is Alan Bien. I'm the property owner of 623 South St. Joseph Street. That's the former BMV building. Actually, I'm not a resident of South Bend, but I've owned this property since 2009. And when I visited the property, when I first bought the property, it seemed to be a very nice neighborhood. And so I was interested in investing in the city. I've been a taxpayer to the city and the county for the last 10 years. At this point, I've been notified by my representatives in South Bend, Greg Pink and Matt Witzel with the Bradley Company, that the homeless issues have gotten worse and worse, especially in the last few months. And I'm sure everybody's aware of what's been happening now. What I find frustrating here is that I know that the reason why the BMV left my particular building from the property in South Bend was that they complained about the homeless issue. So this homeless issue has been ongoing for quite a long time. And as a taxpayer, I find it very, very frustrating that nothing's being addressed even now. And so anything that can be done, I would be very supportive of this resolution that's been being offered here. And if I could vote, I would certainly vote in favor of it. And I hope that the mayor and the administration could take some action. I'm aware of a 2017 study that was done under Mayor Pete for this program. And if that report came out 3 years ago, it's a bit mind-boggling to think that after 3 years, nothing has progressed in addressing this particular issue. And so I really would encourage that all the council members work jointly together to encourage the mayor to take some activity to make this happen. because I think that certainly for all the residents that are nearby who are affected, I sympathize with them as well. And if there's any opportunity to help out, at this point, it's very difficult for me to find another tenant for the building. And,
1 minute.
If the city needs a facility to house an intake center or something like that, that's something that I certainly entertain. So those are my comments for now, and I really am supportive of the resolution that's been stated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mrs. Sparks, I think Margaret Fowle is back.
Yes, in fact, first was Phoenix Pedro. Phoenix, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time and please say your name and address for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Phoenix Pedro. I live at 938 Soren Street, 46617 South Bend. So I'm a PhD student at the University of Notre Dame. I specifically study houselessness, especially as it pertains to health outcomes. I previously worked in California as a research assistant for an NIH-funded program for the Homeless Ethnographic Research and Education Lab. My previous research project was actually a collaboration with the City Council and CSU Long Beach. So I just wanted to speak a little about the importance of a coordinated street outreach team and the necessity of some type of coordinated hub that provides a focused approach to alleviating houselessness based, in my experience as a researcher, with quantitative evidence that these measures increase quality of life for all neighbors, both the housed and unhoused people in our community. So when Councilman Davis asked why is it so hard, there was mention by the mayor about gaps in services as a hurdle. And I'd like to say that every single houseless person that I've ever encountered, no matter their need for other specialized services, has one major thing in common, and that is the lack of housing. And this is why low barrier immediate shelter is a first concern, and services like mental and other physical health programs are of limited success without firstly addressing housing. That being said, gaps in services is also of the utmost concern, which is why a multi-service center and coordination czar that organizes services and referrals is pertinent, so that we can cover all of these issues. We also have to keep in mind the barriers that our houseless neighbors face, such as the difficulties in acquiring documents in order to apply for certain services, difficulties in acquiring transportation, and a justified lack of trust in the system, specifically with their experiences as victims of police brutality. And we need to address these as well. So I'd like to offer my contact information to the appropriate bodies or council members if there's any interest in collaboration or to discuss any of these barriers and brainstorming solution. So I yield my time.
Thank you. Mrs.
Yes, is
Sparks?
Margaret File, Margaret, are you connected this time? Can you unmute yourself at this time and state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hello, yes, my name is Margaret File. I live at 511 South St. Joseph Street here in Monroe Park. And I'd first just like to begin by thanking the mayor and all of the council members who have devoted a lot of time and energy to this issue. I especially appreciate the council people who have taken the time to join our weekly Zoom meetings here in Monroe Park for the last month or so, and those who have taken the time to visit. I realized that the resolution before us is a starting point. I don't think it was ever meant to be the final solution, but I would urge you as council people to please come to agreement together about the content of this bill. I understand that there are procedural concerns. It seems to me that those could be resolved, but we don't want to lose sight of the important content of the bill as it describes the urgent conditions that we're facing. This is not an issue that will be resolved first and foremost by more meetings. Some meetings have been necessary, and frankly, we in Monroe Park have been convening meetings that I think should be happening at a higher level in the city. And I'm glad to hear that those efforts might be underway now. But the situation is grave and urgent, and it is truly an emergency. Whether it meets the statutory requirements for declaring a public emergency is not mine to determine, but the human rational understanding of emergency is in fact the reality that we're living here. And I would ask you as elected officials who are charged with securing public order as part of the common good of our city, that you take this seriously as an emergency. And I'll turn the mic over now to my husband, Robert Weidman, and he will hopefully have 3 minutes, and he can use the rest of my time too.
My name is Robert Weidman, and I live at 511 South St. Joseph Street here in our city. I too want to express my thanks to the members of the council who have sponsored this resolution and lent support to it. I strongly affirm it, and particularly the sense of resolve and sense of urgency that it reflects. As others have already shared, the present circumstance is a grave one. Scores of our neighbors, residents of our city, are unsheltered, living in tents in these recent days in scorching heat and without adequate sanitation. None of us, I'm sure, would say that this is compassionate. None of us would argue that this is a sufficient public health response. And I simply want to say, I don't want to be resigned to this. This isn't as it should be. And what I long to hear, and I think others in Monroe Park long to hear, from our public officials and from people of goodwill across our city is, this isn't what should be, and we are not resigned to this. I'm altogether confident that our community does have the resources and the creativity to provide shelter, to expand possibilities for permanent supportive housing, and to offer resources for healing and recovery. And I just feel that it's important to be clear that we also have the resolve and a sense of urgency and the political will to act, not only for the good of those who lack shelter, but for the good of our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, who's next?
Yes, Catherine Osborne. Catherine, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please say your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. My name's Catherine Osborne. I live at 517 River Avenue in South Bend. And I want to speak in favor of this resolution because not only for the excellent reasons that have already been stated, but because we are in a time in the city where there are fewer and fewer places for people who are homeless to go during the day or during the night. The public library, which was the de facto daytime shelter for eons, has been shut down, first because of the renovation and now because of COVID. Shelters are not really taking new residents. Again, because of the fear of COVID, it's very difficult for anybody in these circumstances to begin to get off the streets. And so reopening the Salvation Army, giving people a safe place to sleep, giving people a place to use the bathroom, giving people a place to be that is not, that is honestly a little bit more in the public eye, that isn't tucked away in Monroe Park where nobody but the people on the block can see them, is a way to begin to move forward in this crisis and hopefully into a place where more permanent supportive housing can finally be established. So thanks, that's it.
Thank you. Who's next, Mr. Sparks?
Yes, we have Arakel Bloss. Arakel, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, please say your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arakel Bloss. I reside in 2513 Erskine Boulevard, South Bend. Since the mayor's decision to forcibly remove the houseless residents living in the tent city on the corner of Michigan and Monroe, a month and a half has passed. For those not living on the soon-to-be-closed Dulles Church program, there has been no PPE provided by the city, no COVID contact tracing done by the local health department, no hand washing stations provided, no water provided, no porta potties provided, and no meeting of the houseless task force as promised on the Common Council meeting the night of May 26th. The city of South Bend has lacked both initiative and leadership in addressing the growing public call to provide solutions to the inhumane and unsanitary conditions in which our houseless live and in which few alternatives are available, if any. According to the HUD website, this year in 2020, the city of South Bend was awarded an ESG grant, an emergency shelter grant of $1 million, in addition to the CARES Act monies given to the city specifically to care for houseless populations during COVID. We are nearly 6 months into the COVID pandemic and have no coordinated, fully comprehensive containment plan to shelter and care for our most vulnerable, the houseless. The federal dollars earmarked for the emergency shelter and outreach of our houseless through HUD and CARES were intended to be spent for immediate needs, not held for a year of committee meetings, nor given to United Way to be distributed in any other way. As many in our country have learned during COVID pandemic, the value of people is not dependent upon the size of their salary, their job title, or education level. The strength of our communities lies in our valuing and caring for each, and for each to care for one another. In my time volunteering at the Amnesty, I met disabled veterans, women and children, elderly, young residents, those suffering mental illness, addiction, those suffering life setbacks, lack of housing, empty wallets, and those brokenhearted. It's a common misunderstanding that the street homeless are chronically homeless. That's not true. Statistically, only 17% of the homeless are chronically homeless. The vast majority of residents you see living in tents and on the streets are a direct consequence of local lack of affordable housing, transitional housing, low barrier shelter beds, and street outreach. So I asked the Common Council and the mayor to consider those people who would utilize an emergency shelter location, which includes women and children fleeing incidents of domestic violence, veterans waiting for their benefits, elderly who can't afford housing on SSI, those unable to make sound decisions independently. Specifically, I asked the Common Council to consider the pregnant women, women and children, and families with children who without this shelter can be separated by CPS. This is the most egregious consequence of the city's long-standing neglect of our houseless community, the separation of children from their parents. I asked the Common Council to pass this resolution to encourage the mayor to lift further delays in opening a shelter and for COVID prevention, containment, and care for all men and women who are unsheltered or who may soon become unsheltered, and most especially the women, children, and vulnerable family units. For all our residents are valuable, but children are certainly our future, and their family unit is first and foremost their home. Please vote to protect our unsheltered and do so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, who's next?
Yes, we have Brandon Turk. Brandon, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, 1 second. My name is Brandon Turk, and I live at 515 South St. Joseph Street in South Bend. And I live and work at the St. Peter Claver Catholic Worker House. Throughout this winter, beginning in October and ending in April, we at the Catholic Worker had operated a city-funded warming center from 1 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. every day of the week at our drop-in center, Our Lady of the Road. With the warming center, we were able to offer a place that was warm, had adequate restroom facilities, couches, water, and snacks. And when we were all unseated by this coronavirus pandemic, we began to regularly offer face masks, hand sanitizer, regular body temperature readings, and blood oxygen level readings. And during the pandemic, Our Lady of the Road became a place for homeless folks to check up on family and loved ones, a place to wash hands, a place to make art, a place to watch movies and discuss their content, a place to sign up to receive stimulus checks, a place to get phones, and a place to reconnect resources. And all of this happened with only 2 people staffing the place at any given shift. As of May 1st, the warming center closed, and not only were people expected to find somewhere else to go in between lunch and dinner at Hope Ministries, but they were expected to find somewhere else to sleep beginning that very same day, because Weather Amnesty 2 closed on the 1st of May. So since the beginning of May, Emma Van Hooser and I have been staffing a resource center, which consists of 2 computers, 2 people, and a seemingly unending flow of people in need of housing, health insurance, healthcare, telephones, folks come needing help creating resumes and applying for jobs, filling out disability documents, reclaiming social security cards and birth certificates, filing for unemployment, signing up for their stimulus checks, connecting to family, not the least of which, people who come for a place of refuge from the heat, sanctuary from predatory drug dealers, and a friendship without strings attached. The resource center is only open from Thank you. The resource center is only open from 1 to 5 p.m. Wednesday and Friday each week. Yet we have had over 75 people come through our resource center since we opened in May. Many of the people have come multiple times, and although we have been working with folks at Oaklawn to schedule intake assessments to get proper medical care, I've been working alongside Rolanda Hughes, who's been doing this work herself for many years. There's an obvious need for more professional caseworkers, social workers, and the like. So I ask you, City Council members, Mayor, having learned many hard lessons this winter, will you take action and provide in the short term another low barrier shelter, preferably at the old Salvation Army building, where people are able to and encouraged to stay 24/7, and that maybe fund that using the CARES Act money, which seems more than appropriate, and that we need more than a handful of people staffing the shelter. My suggestion is there's more than like 1 person for 5 guests in the shelter, and that they have reasonable skills at the very least to navigate healthcare, housing, and legal systems that they'll encounter. And in the long term, I think that we need to work on permanent supportive housing, and then that initiative's led by Oaklawn and other service providers. Thank you all very much for your time and work on behalf of those who need your caring attention most right now. I yield my time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sparks, how many do we have waiting to speak in support of this resolution?
We have 7 remaining speakers, Madam Vice President. The next speaker is Emma Van Hooser. Emma, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Emma, we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn your speaker down.
This is my address is 518 South St. Joseph Street, and I live in South Bend 46601. I'd like to speak in favor of the homeless resolution and to share my perspective from the experience of also staffing the resource center with Brandon Turk on the value of intensive accompaniment of the homeless, such as could be offered in a 24-hour, low-barrier bridge bed program with on-site wraparound services. Here are some of my observations. First, our resource center was started as a crisis measure to catch the problems that have fallen through the gaps of city-funded services. There do exist incredible city-funded services and aid from other service providers for homeless folks, but the reality is people experiencing homelessness are not in a position to initiate or maintain access to available services. This is precisely why they are experiencing homelessness. To be clear, these kinds of problems can be addressed by city services and service providers, but on the ground are not reachable by folks without reliable electricity to charge phones, without a place to preserve paperwork, without a site to access internet, emails, online applications, and so on. The closing of the library last summer only served to exacerbate this dynamic. I am hard-pressed to tell which privation that I have witnessed is more egregious. The lack of providing a water source to members of our homeless community in the midst of a public health crisis, or the lack of providing reliable access to internet and telecommunications. A 24-hour shelter with wraparound services ensures not only necessary support and services, but absolutely as crucial, reliable access to these services. To not appreciate this need is to seriously misunderstand the nature of chronic homelessness. Providing a centralized location for intensive accompaniment of the homeless radicalizes the efficiency of services and minimalizes the gaps services like our resource center currently exist to fill. Further, this benefits several different stakeholders in our community, those working in a variety of public services, social workers, mental health specialists, healthcare navigators, and so on, those experiencing homelessness, and concerned citizens who otherwise must watch and suffer the effects of the downwardly latest iteration of homelessness. Mayor Mueller, I know that you are committed to seeking the well-being of every one of South Bend's citizens. I am grateful for how, in this meeting, you have named the issue of chronic homelessness and spoken to the need for access to service providers. Please choose these resolutions that represent the best step towards securing safe, sane, and productive life and work for all the members of our community. Thank you.
Rachel Mills. Rachel, if you're still here, if you please unmute yourself at this time. Please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Rachel, we can.
I'm Rachel Mills, resident of 518 South St. Joseph Street. As a resident of Monroe Park and a volunteer at Our Lady of the Road, I am deeply in favor of the resolution on homelessness. And I would like to reiterate the call for safe and sustainable housing now, for the common good of our entire South Bend community, and especially for the dignity of our neighbors living in the tent camp, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And we not only need a long-term vision for the future and permanent scattered supportive housing, but immediate action as a first and very necessary step. Our neighborhood wants to see the city take real action before the end of the month to provide shelter through a bridge bed program and intentional accompaniment to our houseless neighbors, rather than see the community in the tent camp shuffled from neighborhood to neighborhood until real action cannot be avoided. And I'd like to say that the grassroots effort of our neighborhood and community to come together to envision and enact a sustainable solution to this pressing crisis of chronic homelessness shows the strength of our South Bend community. And we are hopeful for a collaboration between community effort and the city to match a relational approach with resources so that we all can come together to creatively realize a community where we can say to everyone, you are here, you are seen, and you're a member of this community, and we are all working to grow together to make belonging in this community into a real, active, and true invitation, and to fill the gaps and lacks in that invitation. Thank you all for your time.
Yes, next we have Jake Brororiak. Pardon the mispronunciation of your last name, but Joe, if you're still here, please unmute yourself at this time and please state your name and address for the record. Joe, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Joseph Broviak. I live at 515 South St. Joe Street at the Catholic Worker, and I used to be homeless. And I think one of the biggest problems with the homeless is that they don't know who to go to talk to. And another thing too, I think they're afraid to ask because people are too proud. And I will read the rest of it. As a resident of Monroe Park, I am in favor of the resolution on the homelessness, and I would like you to do more research so that you can act quickly and effectively so that people don't have to be on the streets and when winter comes. And I hope that it can be permanent, that you bring back a lot of the people that used to be on boards and stuff that were older that can help you too, that's been through a lot of this stuff before all of you. Thank you.
Next we have Bob Einters. Bob, if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Graham. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Einters, 307 Lamont Terrace. I'm also the health officer, St. Joe County Department of Health. I'd first like to acknowledge and appreciate the work of so many of you here at this meeting, council members, community members, the mayor, Pam Meyer, and her team, and so many others. I would like to express my support for the resolution, its content, as well as the values and principles contained therein. Health is clearly a social, housing that is clearly a social determinant of health, and poor housing, or in this case, no housing, clearly associated with poor health outcomes. Persons experiencing homelessness come from many walks of life and from all corners of our county, and though many are concentrated in South Bend, I do feel that it is the responsibility of the county as a whole to address the problem and to find solutions together with the city. And in that spirit, I simply would like to express again my support for the resolution and pledge the willingness of the Department of Health, St. Joe County Department of Health, to collaborate with the city, with you, the council members, to find a solution, short and long-term, permanent supportive housing, scattered and/or focused. Thank you.
Madam Vice President, the next speaker is George Enderle. George, please at this time unmute yourself. Please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you, George.
My name is George Enderle. I live at 303 East LaSalle Avenue, apartment 311B in South Bend, Indiana, 46617. Dear Mr. Mayor, dear members of the City Council, dear attendees at this virtual meeting. I'm so glad to attend this meeting of the City Council, although it's getting pretty long. And thank you very much for your attention. Originally from Switzerland, I have lived in South Bend since 1992 and was professor of international business ethics in the Mendoza College of Business at Notre Dame for 28 years. I'm a proud citizen of South Bend and feel very much at home in this city. I would like to speak in support of the resolution on homelessness. I was involved in a working group on homelessness in South Bend in spring 2017 when we proposed a housing first policy to the mayor, Pete Buttigieg, at that time. Unfortunately, we still have no permanent and sustainable solution to homelessness in our city. For our discussion, I would like to emphasize that there are business and economic merits of sheltering the unhoused. For many people, this idea seems to be unusual, if not odd. But the role of business is not just making money. As part of the community, many businesses contribute to the well-being of communities and neighborhoods. It is about finding win-win solutions. To shelter the unhoused needs the collaboration of business. First, a positive attitude to the homeless people and those who support them. Second, the open support of the city's policy of permanent and sustainable housing for those without shelter.
1 minute.
Third, the provision of concrete goods and services at which businesses are good to deliver. And fourth, the opening of job opportunities. This kind of collaboration is important for the success of the city's policy to solve the homeless problem. And I conclude, I have taught business ethics for over 30 years and learned a lot from big and small companies. Business can and should be a force for good here in South Bend and for the unhoused, the neighborhood and the cities. The mayor is certainly correct when he said about the homelessness that there is no easy solution. But I also think with a strong commitment to working together, a permanent and sustainable solution is now possible. With a strong attitude, we can do it. I think I learned in America that attitude, we can do it. Thank you very much.
Madam Vice President, the next speaker is Casey Mullaney. Casey, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the record. Casey, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Casey Mullaney, and I live at 518 South St. Joseph Street here in South Bend. And as a resident of the Monroe Park neighborhood and a member of the Catholic worker community that operates Our Lady of the Road, I am deeply concerned about the many South Bend residents who are experiencing chronic homelessness. I'd like to voice my support for the immediate reopening of the Salvation Army building for a 1-year intensive bridge bed program. Especially during a global pandemic, our city is in desperate need of a 24-hour, low-barrier shelter where people who are experiencing homelessness can get out of the elements and access intensive wraparound services and trauma-informed care. This would be a short-term step that would get people off the street and put them in touch with the support that they need to quickly move into permanent supportive housing or other independent housing options. The group of Monroe Park Neighborhood Association members, activists, service providers, and concerned citizens who have been working on this issue, many of whom we've heard earlier this evening, contains incredible expertise and sensitivity to the value of personalist intensive accompaniment for individuals experiencing homelessness. These individuals come from diverse backgrounds, and many have very different needs, gifts, and challenges. You can't make any generalizations about people who are experiencing homelessness other than the fact they do not have adequate shelter. We who have been addressing the council this evening are ready and willing to partner with the city to make the Bridge Bed program a success. Providing for the basic needs of all citizens is the mark of a decent society. Getting people into safe and sanitary emergency shelter right now is a city responsibility, and I would argue that this is the reason that we have a city government, is to provide for these most basic needs for our most vulnerable citizens. And it would be a great contribution to the common good, not just for the people who are currently unhoused, but for our entire city. Thank you all very much for your time. I yield the rest of my time.
Madam Vice President, we have two more speakers for the speakers list. We have Richard Klee next. Richard, at this time, if you'd like to state your name and address for the record, first unmute yourself and then proceed with your remarks. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Ricky Klee. I live at 2010 Hollywood Place, South Bend, Indiana.
Great.
I ran on the Housing First issue as a part of a platform when I ran for city council about 9 years ago in 2011. And when I was developing that platform, I met with a number of Housing First advocates locally who had already a wealth of data and also anecdotal tales about the wonders Housing First was working in our community, and how if it could just be expanded and better funded, we would see violent crime go down, prison, especially the prison pipeline, be somewhat constrained, that we would save a lot of money locally, particularly because some of the funding sources for Housing First are federal, not local. But I never imagined running in the first district that 9 years later, our supermarket would be abandoned and its awning would become another homeless encampment. But homelessness has spread in terms of this tent encampment settlement, not just in Monroe Park, as we've been hearing so much about, but also in other parts of the city now. Just about 2 years ago, we had the underpass of Portage Avenue blocked off because persons were camping there. I think we should be realistic that this is likely to spread in the face of the pandemic and massive unemployment in the coming year throughout the city. We really need Housing First. It's a nationally proven model for a sustainable and humane housing solution. It's far more efficient and far more dignified than what we do today in our status quo. It's simply what any of us would want if we faced homelessness, whether that's due to domestic abuse or a medical issue, addiction, family concerns. We should do for these others what we would ourselves would want for ourselves. And we do have the money. I asked Mayor Mueller on March 19th in an email whether there would be local funding made available for Housing First, and I'll quote what he replied to me. Quote, "Finding funding locally shouldn't be a problem," end quote. So it's all the more concerning that in the earlier discussion among the council persons, it seems like this is still a matter of debate. I think the council should hold the mayor accountable for this pledge and exercise the latitude that it has,
1 minute,
utilizing both local funding and federal funding to deliver this solution, which has been proven nationally, and yet which is yet to be applied here locally in South Bend. So I urge you to adopt this resolution and to begin the process of delivering housing first as our first response to homelessness in our community. Thank you.
Vice President White, there's one more speaker, and that will exhaust the speakers list on this piece of legislation, Mike Hammond. Mike, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you, Mike. Mike, you still with us? Hello, Mike?
Just a moment, please.
This is Mike Hammond with offices on the second floor of the County City Building, St. Joseph County Auditor, also living at 2658 Tomahawk Trail, South Bend, Indiana. And I'm mostly responding to, I'm in support of this resolution, but I'm also responding to the comments of Dr. Bob Einters of the St. Joseph County Health Department. And I want to reiterate, the county's support. The mayor had mentioned that he had reached out to somebody in the county as it relates to maybe partnering in this effort. There's a heck of a lot of people, I'm sure, that are in these homeless encampments, these tent cities that are, live in the unincorporated areas of the city. I'm sorry, of the county. So I'd be willing to work with the mayor and to work with the county council and the St. Joseph County Health Department to try to ameliorate the situation. I was down there the other day talking to those folks. It is truly a really awful situation. They live in squalor. It's miserable and it's unconscionable. And on July 31st, I'm not sure what our plan is. I don't see a plan. So, Mr. Mayor, I know you're on this call. I'm awaiting your call. If you want to get together and we want to talk to Councilman Raphael Morton, some of the other folks in terms of how the county might be able to partner with you, I'm here to help. I'll do whatever I can. This is a hair on fire moment, not a time to be lollygagging down the first base line. We need to move on this, and I'll do whatever I can to help you all out. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, that is our last speaker.
That is correct, Madam Vice President.
We'll now move back to the council. I would ask each council member, if you're asking a question or making a statement, that you do make that statement. And if another council person is speaking, that you do not cut them off. And so now the public hearing portion is closed. I don't know if there's any additional comments. If so, I would like to hear those now. If not, I will entertain a motion. Council members.
I would like to make a motion that 2022 be passed full acclamation.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. City Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Thomas Morgan. Nay. Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride. Councilmember McBride.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I missed a part of what you were saying. You were muffled on my end.
Oh, okay. We're taking a vote of yes or no on the resolution 2022.
Oh, I hear you now.
Okay, did you hear what I just said?
You're sounding like you're underwater.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna try to go back out and come back. Please
okay.
come back.
Okay. Councilmember Warner.
No.
Councilmember Tashka.
No.
33.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
No.
Okay. Is our Councilmember McBride back on yet?
What's that?
Okay, Vice President White.
I would say aye.
Okay, we just need Councilmember McBride to come back so that I can get her vote.
Madam Vice President, this is Grant from the clerk's office, and I also asked this question to Council Attorney Bob Palmer, just a point of inquiry. The motion made was just a motion by full acclamation.
Acclamation,
Does
yes.
that not require all council members to vote the same way?
Council member, I would turn that over to our attorney. Attorney Palmer.
Acclamation usually means not by roll call vote. Under the executive orders and rules for virtual meetings, we have to take every vote by roll call vote.
I thought so. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McBride.
Hello?
Okay. Yes. Are you voting yes or no for resolution 2022?
Yay.
Okay. We have 5 ayes and 4 nays.
Can I have a point of clarification, please?
Yes.
So if the motion was made by acclamation, meaning that he was saying it is all unanimous, how is it that anybody can vote yes on this motion?
I had to ask Attorney Palmer to really explain that because of the executive order that we would have to do the roll call. But
so that means that this motion is not dead. It's just not by acclamation. Is that correct, Attorney Palmer?
That's correct.
Actually,
That's correct.
I missed I don't even know what happened.
We're voting. There was a motion to accept this resolution by acclamation, but because of the executive order and how we have to operate, we had to do roll call.
Okay, so since I came back on, I don't even know where I came on and what the votes were and what that meant.
We're voting for those in favor or those against.
But by acclamation.
It doesn't change anything, Sheila.
I assume that it
you still have a vote whether you want to say yes or no. So it doesn't change anything.
I really don't.
Now, I wish that you would have voted for it, but it doesn't change anything.
Yeah. Attorney Palmer, I want to make sure that there's clarity in regards to what we've done as a council and also why we had to have the roll call. Once again, please.
Yes, under the executive orders of the governor, we are allowed to have virtual meetings as we're having. But one of the requirements of virtual meetings is that all votes of any kind are taken by roll call instead of acclamation or any other way. So a vote for passage by acclamation is simply a vote for passage, and each member gets 1 vote. And as I counted the votes, and please correct me, Clerk Jones, if I'm wrong, it was 5-4 in favor of passage.
That is correct.
Okay, we'll now move on. And as we have received, I'm sorry. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And so that we have received, from the mayor, his administrative statement. And as we have now passed this resolution, we understand the scope and the breadth of the resolution as well as the intent. And we've heard from council members as well. So we'll move forward. There's no bills for first reading. We have 2 items under unfinished business. The first item is the Fraternal Order of Police South Bend Large 36 letter of intent. First, I would like to say that we have received the letter of intent to begin negotiations received by the city on or about June 29th. All that needs to be said about this is that the letter that we will acknowledge and that the council will name its bargaining team and agent for negotiations through a resolution at the next council meeting.
Vice President White, point of order. This is Graham Sparks from the clerk's office. I think you were talking about these items of new business, but you were thinking they're under unfinished business, but really they're under new business, and I think you have to open.
New business. I'm sorry, under new business.
Yep.
Do we have any unfinished business? If not, we'll go to new business. And I just read the first item under new business. This is for informational purposes, so that at our next meeting, we will have a resolution that will accept the letter of intent from the FOP, but also we will appoint our agent and our bargaining team at the next council meeting. The next issue I'll turn over to Attorney Bob Palmer, discussion of vacant common council presidency.
Thank you, Vice President White. As you all know, there's currently a vacancy in the Common Council presidency due to the resignation of Tim Scott. Pursuant to the South Bend Municipal Code, the Vice President becomes the acting president until the vacancy is filled. Furthermore, pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order, which the Council follows, the Vice President automatically becomes the President. Any council member, however, can move to suspend the rules in order to hold a new election for president. Any such motion must be carried by a 2/3 majority of all council members. The issue will be brought to the floor of the next common council meeting on July 27th. If no motion is made, or if a motion is made and fails to pass, the current vice president becomes president, and there will be an election for the vacant vice president position. If such a motion to have an election is made and passed, there will be an election for the president's position, and the current vice president will remain as vice president. All of these options will be on the table at the July 27, 2020 council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And to council members, we wanted to wait until the first district representative had been appointed, and so that's why we'll be moving forward at the next meeting. If you have any questions regarding the two items that we have read into the record, please feel free to approach our attorney. Well, now we'll move towards the privilege of the floor. This is opportunity that individuals can speak on any agenda items that was not discussed. And you will have we have 3 minutes, and you have the 30 minutes that we have allotted for this portion of our meeting. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone wishing to speak under privilege of the floor?
Councilmember White, there's been no one to request a place on privilege of the floor. I yield.
Thank you so much. Seeing that there's no other business, the city council meeting stands adjourned. Thank you. We thank everyone for your participation and for sticking with us until 10 a.m.
PM. Good night.
PM. Oh, PM. Okay.
Good night.